All right, ladies and gentlemen, my final big reaction for today before I continue with Fire Force a little bit later on after my shower. We only have Jujutsu Kaisen left for the lineup of my usual Sunday lineup, and then both One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Jujutsu go on break for 2 whole weeks until the 21st of January. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here, and welcome to the last reaction for today of the usual big 3 chapters that I tend to do reactions for. Jujutsu Kaisen. Last we left off in the story, Higuruma and everyone else was fighting Sukuna while they were trying to figure out how to get judgment to judge Sukuna. Sukuna wound up getting judged with a death sentence, and confiscation was dealt to him, but it took away his Kamutoke. But it left Sukuna with his slashes, which he then starts to use on everybody. And then as Higuruma and everyone else is trying to figure out how to combat Sukuna, Sukuna winds up throwing Higuruma away in a distance, and he's more curious about Higuruma and the Executioner's sword. So, a lot of things happen in between. Kinji Hakari is fighting Uruume, and his jackpot from his domain expansion is literally giving him invincibility, where Uruume is having a very hard time trying to kill this man. This man's regeneration is pretty much instantaneous, and he just keeps fighting like it's nothing. And every single time he keeps hitting this jackpot, he's invincible for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, if I remember that correctly. Then we end with Higuruma, who gets thrown into a building by Sukuna, and Sukuna tries to use slashes and dismantle on him, but it doesn't really work all that well because Higuruma, as we've recently discovered and learned about, is a cursed energy genius. To the point where he's able to use domain amplification on himself to mitigate the damage of Sukuna's slashes. And mind you, Higuruma learning how to do domain amplification for a person who only, within 12 days, he gained the complete and total understanding of how to manipulate cursed energy. And after watching Sukuna versus Gojo learn how to harness cursed energy to use domain amplification. After seeing it used in the fight between Gojo and Sukuna, he understood how to do domain amplification, and now he stands before Sukuna. So let's see what happens in chapter 247, Inhuman Makyo Shinjuku Showdown Part 19. Holster and Spoon, good to see the both of you. Recreating domain amplification. What caught Sukuna's eyes more than that was the interruption and resumption of the cursed technique effect due to amplification. When I activated amplification during my fight against Satoru Gojo, I was extremely careful that Malevolent Shrine's adaptation up to that point was interrupted and not nullified. This man's sword also resumed its cursed technique effect after amplification. In other words, he wields his cursed energy technique almost as effectively as I wield mine. He's almost comparing Higuruma's control over cursed energy to his own, which is really big accolades when you think about it, because Sukuna is at the top of the food chain when it comes to anything cursed technique related. Hiromi Higuruma. That's your name, right? As Sukuna starts doing hand signs with one pair of arms, and then he holds his hands out, and then Sukuna's eyes just kind of widen, like his multiple eyes on one side of his face kind of light up a little bit. I wouldn't say light up, but it just, this overwhelming sense of power just gets felt by Higuruma and Yuji. And as Yuji's trying to run over there, the whole place where Higuruma and Sukuna are, it just gets completely diced up in an instant, where Higuruma and Sukuna are both airborne. And Higuruma starts running towards Sukuna. And as he does this, as he's running, his eyes widen as, I want to say, he destroys, because there's these 2 big pieces of bricks that are looking like they're going to hit him on the head, but he gets rid of both of them while Yuji clashes with Sukuna. And while Yuji's trying to go after Sukuna, Sukuna takes 2 pairs of arms and then proceeds to use Dismantle on Yuji's midsection. He just uses dismantle on a part of his side, just right then and there, and just tears through Yuji. Mind you, it's not like a whole section is just gouged out of his body. It's just that the slashes cut into him. It's like a big patchwork of slashes went across Yuji's left midsection there.
Get it through your head already. You're boring. You don't thrill me at all.
As he just casually throws away Yuji. And then all of the building that Sukuna had raised up just falls towards the ground with a resounding crash. Sukuna lands on a broken bridge nearby, and Higuruma goes over and tries to jab at Sukuna with the Executioner's sword, with which Sukuna just dodges out of the way. Then Sukuna proceeds to Higuruma proceeds to Sukuna just decks Higuruma in the face, and while that's going on, Higuruma spins around with the Executioner's sword and tries to stab behind him. But Sukuna has jumped backwards, upside down, and he starts saying an incantation.
Dragon scales, repulsion, paired falling stars. Dismantle!
And then there's a massive cut where Higuruma was. And then Sukuna is just standing on another part of this sliced off bridge as he goes,
heal that. Go on and heal yourself.
As it shows that Higuruma has just had his right arm cut off.
How funny. No matter how cold my heart, no matter how prepared I was, pain still hurts.
Like, Higuruma's right arm is just completely gone.
Is that all you got?
As Sukuna proceeds to chop off Higuruma's left arm. And then he cuts into both of Higuruma's legs.
Is that all you got? Next I'll take off your head. Reverse curse technique. Reverse curse technique. You've heard of it, right? Come on, some effort, please. Heal or die.
And then it cuts back to when Higuruma said in the last chapter, I'm content on fulfilling my role and dying. My role. And then it shows something zooming into Sukuna as he's preparing to kill Higuruma right then and there. And it's a beam that Sukuna just blocks. And this beam comes from...
This must be from a death painting wound, the older brother. How persistent.
As Sukuna has his hand raised, and more than likely this was Choso who distracted Sukuna, because Higuruma regenerates his right arm, instantly regenerates his right arm as Sukuna's looking at it, and Sukuna's other eyes look at Higuruma, and then Higuruma takes the Executioner's sword and stabs into Sukuna's hand. With his regenerated hand, he stabs directly into Sukuna. And then proceeds to take it off.
Not bad.
He separated his hand before I could strike him. Because it shows that, yeah, Sukuna just cut off his own hand to keep Higuruma from actually separating him.
He separated his hand before I could strike him.
Then there's a bashing sound as Sukuna proceeds to use slash on Higuruma as we cut back in time to Kusakabe going, curses don't always weaken after death.
Yeah, the general idea is they get stronger. My role.
As we see the Executioner's sword just grow shorter and smaller in his hands. Then we see Sukuna using slash over Higuruma's entire body. Blood just gushes out of his body as Yuji is right behind Sukuna all of a sudden. And then Yuji grabs the Executioner's sword, like the symbol for it, and he gets it in his hand as he's looking at Higuruma, whose eyes are kind of rolling up in his head a little bit as he's spewing out blood everywhere. And he just looks at Higuruma and gets reminded of Nanami, who looked at him and went, "You've got it from here."
That's what you should do.
I am a sorcerer! as Yuji takes this executioner sword symbol, it turns into a short dagger as Yuji is preparing to stab into Sukuna's back, and Sukuna still hasn't moved, and the dagger is it's dangerously close to Sukuna's back right now. So it appears as if Yuji is about to stab Sukuna with the executioner sword, and if this hypothesis is correct, separate Sukuna from Megumi. And that's the end of the chapter. Yuji is appearing like he's about to use the executioner sword on Sukuna and hopefully separate him and Megumi from each other. He says his name, that's pretty big praise too. Yeah. Oh wait, I think I'm reading a bit too far ahead. Let me go back a little. He really wants Higuruma to heal himself. It's piercing blood. Yep, it's Choso. He has now learned reverse curse technique. Let's go Higuruma. Yeah. I wonder if it'll hit Sukuna, and if it goes, what will happen to Sukuna after he's separated from Megumi. Well, Kusakabe says, like, curses don't always weaken after death. The general idea is that they get stronger. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Sukuna is going to become weaker just because he separates from Megumi. He could wind up becoming stronger, being separated from somebody. So that's the conversation that Kusakabe and Higuruma had before this all went down. Now, the thing to take away from this is the fact that Sukuna acknowledged him by name, saying, like, his control, he literally says it in the very first panel. When I activated my amplification during my fight against Satoru Gojo, I was extremely careful that Malevolent Shrine's adaptation up to that point was interrupted and not nullified. This man's sword also resumed its curse technique effect after amplification. In other words, he wields his curse technique almost as effectively as I wield mine. He's literally acknowledging that Higuruma's control over cursed energy is almost as good as his. The only other person he was willing to acknowledge who was able to give him a real run for his money was Satoru Gojo. And I'm not going to include Jogo because he only said it in the ways of, like, take pride in yourself, be proud of yourself, you're strong. But not in a way of, like, you actually gave me some trouble there, because it was never a matter of how strong Jogo was against Sukuna. Sukuna just eclipsed him. Satoru Gojo was the only one to bring him to that point and make him pull out all the stops in order to beat him, and he still acknowledged him as being the strongest. Now we have Sukuna acknowledging another person because Higuruma is like showing off his genius. Not only has he learned how to use domain amplification, but he also learned how to use reverse curse technique in such a way that Sukuna really had to do some serious damage to him. And even after all that, Higuruma uses that moment where Sukuna's, using Dismantle on him to toss over the Executioner Sword to Yuji in the hopes that Yuji can stab Sukuna in the back and allow the Executioner Sword to do its job. Jays! Yo, good to see you. Now the question is, what's going to happen once Sukuna is separated from Megumi? Because if Yuji manages to land a hit on Sukuna, what's going to happen to Sukuna if he doesn't have a host? Is he just going to be just as powerful or even more powerful without a host? And we also have to take in the possibility, and it's pretty good reverse curse technique too, it healed his arm pretty fast. It was pretty much seconds. I want to say mere seconds. Not even a minute. Because if we go forward to when Choso tried to fire at Sukuna, and another thing to note is that him using an incantation, Dragon Scales, Repulsion, Paired Fallen Stars, he literally amped up his dismantle to, in the process, let's think about this for a second. Sukuna, when you use an incantation with a curse technique, that effectively makes it stronger. It's like using a full incantation for a Kido or a Hado in a Bleach. He used an incantation to increase the power of Dismantle, and all that happened to Higuruma was his right arm just getting sliced off. If it was any other person, they probably would have been eviscerated, but for Higuruma to still be standing, and then Sukuna just starts to chop off his other limbs, just chops off his other hand, and cuts into his leg so he can barely stand up. Choso, because right here and there, Sukuna was preparing to cut his head completely off. But Choso distracts him, allowing Higuruma to not only heal both his legs, but also his arm. That's one thing I didn't acknowledge. He healed both of his legs so he can get up and swing his executioner sword at Sukuna and pierce him through the hand. But Sukuna sliced off his own hand while Higuruma is still regenerating his left arm in order to keep the executioner's sword from pretty much affecting his entire body. So when he tosses over the little silver star for the executioner's sword, Yuji catches it as Sukuna uses dismantle on Higuruma, and Yuji looks like he's about to stab Sukuna in the back. Because this is the second time that someone says, like, you got it from here, that's what you should do. Because it's literally just another parallel of Nanami saying, like, you've got it from here. It's literally just another parallel. We lost someone at the beginning of the Shibuya event, which was Nanami, after Mahito used, idol transfiguration against him. Now we have Higuruma in the same position where he's giving the last of, saying like it's Yuji's turn to take over. This is yet another instance where someone is spurring Yuji on to finish the fight. So I can only hope, the way Sukuna says it's so stubborn, it's almost like he's talking about Yuji, so that piercing blood might be Yuji's. Could it be? Because Sukuna says this must be from a death painting wound, the older brother. The older brother. So I say it's Choso because the older brother would in fact be Choso, since he's pretty much older than everybody else. This must be from a death painting womb, the older brother. How persistent. So I honestly feel like it was Choso who shot that piercing blood at Yuji. Because how would Yuji know how to use piercing blood? That's the question. So I feel it's Choso who did it, but off screen. Matter of fact, let's see if we can fact check that. JJK 247. Let's see. Wiki. Let's see if they even have it up. Because, the Jujutsu Kaisen wiki tends to not really have chapters fully updated when it's time. So it may not have, like, the chapter ready with a synopsis or anything. Yep. Unsurprisingly, it's not. But it says that Choso is mentioned. So I stand by. I stand by what I say with it being Choso who shot that piercing blood. Huh? New chapter? CDs, where you been, man? I've already reacted to One Piece, My Hero, and Jujutsu Kaisen. I literally scheduled it. I literally scheduled it for today. Like all the chapters, and I talked about it multiple times. You may not have been around when I talked about it. But all 3 chapters released today. Now, this is not going to be the norm. This is just for today. We're going on a 2-week break for all these series that I've reacted to. One Piece, My Hero, and Jujutsu Kaisen. So for 2 weeks, we're not going to have any chapters. So, wow. For 2 weeks, which means I'm going to have 2 free Sundays. Interesting. It's not very often where I get 3 series. Choso's still in the game, you're at work, it's all good. I'm just saying that because Yuji told Kamo that he was a better trainer than Choso, which might indicate that Kamo taught him piercing blood. True, but Choso is mentioned, so I still stand by the fact that it's more than likely Choso who's shooting the piercing blood, yet besides, Yuji has always been a more up-close type of fighter. Not the type to do, like, long-range stuff. He's always been like a melee fighter. He's always been someone who would use close-range attacks or throw things at people. He's the brute out of every single person that we've seen thus far. He's much prefers to be the melee fighter. Now, you saying like Kamo is a much better trainer than Choso, that could mean any number of things. Better with hand-to-hand combat or whatnot. Not just like the potentiality. Not just the potentiality of Yuji learning some more long-range curse techniques, which it could be. We could see him do something new because Yuji had those hands of his. Those hands of his that were all like scaling and insectoid, or like they look like curse monster hands when he jumped out of the domain expansion of Kinji Akari when Kinji was fighting Uruume. So it could be any number of things. We don't know to what fullest extent Yuji has gained a power-up after Sukuna left his body and they were all talking about what to do. We don't know to what full extent quite yet. We don't even know fully what Yuji is and why he is the way he is, how strong he is, how he's able to pick up entire cars and chuck them at people. Why I look like a high schooler? I'm wearing my hoodie that my family got me for Christmas. What you mean why I look like a high schooler? I've always been forever young, man. Don't you know when I shave, I go back 10 years. I age backwards. I got the forever juice flowing in my veins. So, but it's all good. You already look mad young, but that jacket got me looking like a high schooler. Look, man, it's this is what no stress does. No stress, living that good life like God intended. I'm just happy that I look younger than my age than me looking older than my age. But yeah. So, that's where we're at right now for Jujutsu Kaisen. Higuruma having like part of his body just completely exploded with blood, or at least from where Sukuna sliced him with dismantle, and Yuji looking like he's about to stab Sukuna with the executioner sword. We have no idea what's about to happen. Trying to get like me, hopefully. Hey, just keep at it. Just keep at it. Don't let things bother you, regardless of how things look. Just remain optimistic in all things. Just trust God in all things, and then you'll be fine. It's worked out well for me. I'm living my best life, doing what I love to do as a full-on career. I couldn't ask for anything better. With the whole concept of this ethereal youth elixir, whatever it is, I forgot. Yeah, I haven't really looked into that series myself. But I read the first chapter for you guys, but I never really wanted to turn it into a series. I just figured it'd just be a one-off, so I haven't really been keeping up with that series. But this is where we're at with Jujutsu. Yuji looks like he could be the one that separates Sukuna from Megumi, but we don't know if that will work. Because I feel like Gege would want to show Yuji using piercing blood if he's going to do it for the first time. Yeah, there's that. So it's anyone's guess on what could possibly happen. Sukuna could separate, make an opening into his body to make it so that the executioner sword goes through, but it doesn't touch his skin. Any number of things could happen. Yuji could actually hit Sukuna, but maybe it doesn't do anything. There's a wide array of theories of what could possibly happen for this next chapter, but we have 2 weeks to contemplate it. And all I know is that if this does not work, things can go from worse to horrendous real fast. But we're just going to have to wait and see when 2 weeks are up. All in all, out of everything I've read today, both with One Piece, My Hero, and Jujutsu, they've all been very solid chapters, with One Piece being by far the best chapter out of all the 3 that I've read today. But yeah, we got a whole 2-week break. Luckily for me, I'll have plenty of things to keep me occupied next week, going into the week after, and then we'll be right back at doing reactions on Sundays. So it should be fun. I love how in One Piece we're like, this punch better connect. Look, that's what everyone's hoping on. And when it does, I'm saying when it does, it's going to become the greatest punch in One Piece history. I'm not saying anything more than that because I know CDs has not caught up yet. So I know you haven't caught up yet, so I ain't gonna say no more. While in JJK we're thinking, is Yuji gonna actually hit with this? Ain't that crazy how different series has us thinking different things about the outcomes? In One Piece, we're all like, oh, I can't wait to see this happen. But then you have different series that make you think like, I hope this connects. What if it doesn't? The uncertainty for some series versus the sureness of others that we feel just because that's what we desire, versus other series where we can't even tell. So I can't wait to see what happens next. Someone on TikTok who would be trying to catch up to One Piece. That's the reason why I'm not going to say what's been going on in the recent chapters. I ain't going to say. I'm not going to say. I told you, since you're watching the anime, I am not going to spoil you on events that happen before they happen. I know you've popped in a couple of times, but I don't want to ruin the experience for you. This is something you got to experience on your own. You're Katakuri blocking all Luffy's hits. Okay, so that's where you're at on Hulk. You're still in Whole Cake Island? You're still in Whole Cake Island. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. I want you to experience what we've seen. What we've read and what we've seen. Because most of us have already caught up to the anime itself. And yeah. So I ain't going to say anything. It's for you to enjoy. I don't want to ruin those moments for you. But I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. I got some other things to take care of. And then we're going to continue the content today with yet another reading of Fire Force with Volume 30. But that'll be after I go ahead and take my shower and make sure that your boy smells nice for all of you. I'm done with today's reactions for new chapters. All I can say is whether you were here from One Piece, My Hero, or, well, Jujutsu, of course, all I can say to you is, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. Like, comment, subscribe, even become a member because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples.